Listen, we had people are kind of looking at this Carlos Castro and Stephen Fulton, Cool Boy Steph, Scooter. They were looking at that one like, that ain't the way it was supposed to go. And I'm trying to like hip y'all on. It's a lot of great boxing in the world. The thing is, and try to follow me. Boxing tells you who to watch. And what I mean by that is the business, who they feel is going to move the money, move the ticket sales. They're telling you who to watch. Once upon a time, they was telling you to watch Rolly.
Yeah.
And Rolly ain't really been Rolly.
Yeah.
And really, and even when Rolly was doing the big knockouts and stuff like that, again, when you look at the opposition, that wasn't a Stephen Fulton, Carlos Castro kind of fight, you know what I mean? And so now you're looking at the name, Stephen Fulton, Cool Boy Steph, you're looking at where he's coming from, first fight moving up. We've seen Carlos drop a few of the big fights that he's been in, and we don't think this is gonna be what it ended up being. Carlos Castro is the real deal, but he just don't have the name. So you guys don't look at him like that. Think about it like the NFL, the NBA. There's so many great players in the game, but we only talk about those significant quarterbacks. So we talk about those significant receivers. There's other players on other teams that are just as big for their team, and until they go up against somebody with that big name, you really don't see the presence that they have. So Carlos Castro, I had him losing the fight last night.
Okay.
I had him
clearly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I apologize if my score is off. I don't think it is, but I apologize if my score. I felt like he was at certain points a half step behind Cool Boy, and then the other points a full step behind Cool Boy, and there were only a couple of rounds where it was clear and concise that he won 2 rounds, and one of those, and I'm sorry, 3 rounds, and one of those was a knockdown round.
Right, and it was a pretty competitive fight throughout, so some people might feel like, okay, pretty competitive fight throughout, one guy got dropped, so I feel like Castro won the fight. I agree with Sean. I thought Fulton won the fight because he started fast in those first 4 rounds to where by the time he got dropped in the 5th, you know, at best it may have evened things up for Castro, but not give him some kind of lead. And if anything, Fulton was still ahead a point or so. And then from then on, you know, Fulton, he switched things up in the 6th round and went to his jab to create openings, to stabilize himself after getting knocked down. It was a really good adjustment. And then the rest of the fight, he basically went to war from 7 through 10, and he held his own, did enough to get out of there with the W. But the way he fought that fight, I give him credit because he talked knockout all week, and then he showed up and tried to do it. I mean, he tried to make a statement. And I get it. You know, if you box pure and clean, some people criticize that. You go toe-to-toe, now people say you didn't box enough, right? But that's what makes this sport great, is you got to do both at the right times. I did feel like it was super entertaining, but I did feel like he exchanged a little bit too much, was a little overzealous in the pocket for good reasons, wanting to put on a show on the prelims of a Canelo card, wanting to show the boxing world, I'm all the way back.
And even from a psychological standpoint, when you get put on the undercard that starts the main card, I'm sure that had something. He had already gone out in social media and voiced about that. That was something that I'm sure showed up, and at least until half the fight. So
I think he made it harder than it could.
That's what I was
it had to be.
He's so much better.
Yeah, he could have just really outboxed the guy, and obviously, you know, we hold him to a standard, so that's why it's like, bro, you got dropped, so that's like, it takes so much off the fight. I thought it was a little closer, but at the end of the day, I still thought he won the fight. Welcome to 126, I say. It's a good guy to come into 126 versus, because you got a lot of dogs up in there, and I want to see if his power going to carry up, because he's going to need it at this level.
Well, he wasn't a puncher at 22, and I do feel like, Jesus, I even put it on you.
That's God.
I do feel like, it's my mom. So.
Same thing.
Angel call.
Right. See, but I feel like he's a little small for 126, right? And I think he could still have success, but does got to get back to boxing a lot. He's from Philly, so even against Figueroa, he rumbled with him. Like that's a part of a Philly fighter. They're gonna rumble. They're not gonna just Bernard Hopkins excluded in his later years, they're not going to just stay disciplined on that all the time. They're going to fight. But he does need to box more. He's a really good boxer. That 6th round, he made it easy for 3 minutes off his jab, then went back to war. If he's going to have success in this weight class, he's got to work to his strengths as a really good boxer. He's always going to be Philly tough. He's always going to pick his spots to fight. We got to box. And I think stay away from the guy like Rafael Espinoza, who's 6 foot in the weight. He's too big. Fight Angelo Leo again, who you beat already, and is a former 122 pounder like you. It's not Figueroa. He was bigger than you at 22. He'll be bigger than you at 26, but still a former 22 pounder. Fight those guys for the title. I would stay away from Espinoza, who's 6 feet tall and with top rank anyway. So
Did he really need to go 126?
That's a good question.
Because he like you said, he's a very little man.
I didn't say he's very.
Well, he is very little.
Again,
Shout out to
122.
you.
It's only 4 pounds to 126. If he's got out of 22, those 4 pounds are probably almost impossible for him to cut through. For him to cut through and then get back to fight night and fight at optimal. That's another thing with the weight that people don't consider. You got to also consider during the duration of a camp, you have to have weight management through the duration of a camp, which may mean cutting a little more at certain points. You may show up in the gym a little weaker or whatever until your body acclimates. See, these are the things that people don't know. Your body has to acclimate to a certain weight class. When I was cutting to 47, when I was at my tip top, I was starting at maybe 165, cutting from 165 to get to 47. When we would get to 55, it was like, yo, this is just gonna be a bad day. We understood that we might go through this today and tomorrow, but pretty soon the body's gonna acclimate, the mind is gonna acclimate, changing up the eating regimen, all that kind of stuff, and then you can get back to regular life. For him, 22 to 26, it's only 4 pounds. If he's saying I can't cut 4 pounds to get to 22, and he's a adult, you know what I mean? It's not like we're asking the kid to cut out the candy and he's good to go. I felt like he punched with a lot of pop last night.
Oh, you sharp.
He was sharp, and I thought that to me in a lot of those rounds, I went round by round with this fight.
Okay.
Watched it after the fights because I missed it prior to the main events coming on. Went back and watched it round by round and analyzed each round. I had him winning a majority of the rounds. And check this out, because I felt like he landed the more significant punches throughout those rounds. And then I had to look at myself. I was like, yo, what about my work rate against guys like Keith Thurman or against guys like Errol Spence Jr. and they would land 1 or 2 big shots and end up winning the round against me. And it's still, for me, it wasn't, don't mean to talk about me, but the difference between me and Carlos Castro is I actually was in the ring with those guys and having control through the entire round and then would have a moment here or there. Carlos, even with out pointing or out punching Cool Boy at different points in every round, he still didn't do enough. He out hustling, but you still getting hit.
Wasn't flashy.
Not that he wasn't
flashy towards the head snapping, sharp, left hooks Fulton would land.
Because I'm like, he's more active than Cool Boy, especially with the jab. I'm like, but Cool Boy is landing the punches that are throwing his head back.
Right.
I was like, and when he lands something, it's not a lot, but he doesn't have total control of those rounds. You know what I mean? So I was like, a lot of these rounds I still get a Cool Boy. I felt like the commentary, they were talking a lot about Carlos's jab, and it was an effective jab, but I didn't think it was effective enough to the point of, giving him rounds just based solely on the jab. And I want to go on record for saying I believe you can win an entire fight with just the jab. Carlos just didn't do enough. I feel like he was a half step behind Cool Boy. Cool Boy got dropped.
When he got dropped, I went right to Inoue. I'm like, how much that took out of him, that moment in the Inoue fight. You know, he got hit, then he got hit on the way down. So I was just worried that he wasn't going to recover, and he got back to it.
Well, the other part about going up a weight class, now you're going up against guys, you're coming up against guys who are coming down to that weight class for the most part. Even though he's coming up to 26, he's probably maybe cutting from 130, but he's getting in the ring with guys who are cutting from 135, maybe even 140. So it kind of, his skill asset, his speed, all those kinds of things really evens the playing field, but that power will probably always show up, especially Brandon Figueroa now is a little more comfortable at 26 than he was at 122. We know he wasn't comfortable at 22, you know. And then the big tall kid, Raphael, you gotta stay away from him. The kid's good.
Let Carrington fight him.
Yeah,
Carrington's got a better style. Let
Carrington.
Yeah, I'm looking at 126, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
And it's only a matter of time before the monster gets there. So
yeah, duck monsters at all costs. Hey,
not for the kind of money he brings.